Whoopsie daisy. Okay, there we go. Mannies and gentlewomen. That's right, it's that time for the Fringe FM. Coming at you live from the middle of nowhere, the center of everywhere. Here once again. Always got to pause for that boom. To bring you yet another scrumptious dose of conversational boogie. This is the one and only Shift Happens. Oh, wait, here comes another one. There we go. That worked out. What's happening, folks? Yeah, last week off. Back here again. Yeah, you know, Dragon Roast. Just trying to, switch it up. Switch it up. Mannies and gentlewomen, absolutely. And, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one of our, what would you call it? One of our Hall of Favorites here tonight. And we'll be getting to him in just a minute. What's up, Pat? What's up, Dragon Rose? Good to see you guys. And yeah, so we are coming to we're coming to a couple of things. One is oh boy, is that really happening? Okay, sorry about that, folks. Good Lord on a biscuit. Now, so we're coming to a couple of things. One, the end. Well, let's start with this. First of all, our 8th year anniversary is coming up. It is technically on the 16th of December, which is not on a Friday. So either next week or the week after that will be, quote unquote, the anniversary episode, which we got a very special show planned for that, which is actually what I mentioned last week would be today. Not that this isn't a special show, but that one has been moved to either next Friday or the Friday after that. Depends on the folks involved with that. It's going to be multiple people. Looking forward to that. And then also, this is the last month where we're going to be going live on Spreaker, because Spreaker, in their genius, decided to no longer support live broadcasting. And take your best guess as to what the hell they're thinking and how they're going to make any money once literally every podcast leaves here, because you can't broadcast live. Now, to be fair, though, to you, because a lot of you, all of our core audience, you've been listening right here on Spreaker. You're in the chat room right now, and it's always been here. Now, the chat room for sure won't be here. That'll be on where we're actually doing it live, but we will, at the very least, we're going to keep the episode archive in Spreaker, and that will be still on the homepage of shifthappensradio.com, just for your convenience. Just, you go right there, all the episodes are there. You can download it, stream it, whatever, bam. That's going to stay the same. But the live broadcasts are probably going to be, we're going to mess around with some stuff. Definitely Rumble, maybe a little Twitch, and depending on the guest or not, YouTube, depending on the content that we're going to be talking about. And we'll basically be doing all those at the same time. So you can pick your poison, but we are trying to find a home for like the main place for the live chat, which, as I've asked you guys before, it's almost unanimous that everybody wants it to be on Rumble. So that's going to be our main focus. And then Twitch will sort of be the other one. And then those will be the live streams. And then once the episodes are done, we will upload them to YouTube after the fact. We're probably not going to go live on YouTube, actually. There's a lot of reasons behind that. MJ, what's happening, man? Good to see you. So yeah, pretty crazy month. And speaking of anniversaries, this Sunday, this Sunday is the 10-year anniversary episode of Beyond the Strange, which, for those of you that maybe somehow don't know this, that's where I got my start. And that's, was co-hosting Beyond the Strange with Dave and Les at the time. Rick Sennett was in the bunch, and that's where I met Cortana. And shortly after that, she came up with the idea for Shift Happens, and bing, bam, boom, here we are. So, this Sunday, which actually Jason, I believe, he's going to jump in for a few minutes on that episode as well. So that is this Sunday. The exact time, I don't know because I'm dumb, but it's posted out there somewhere, and I will retweet that on Twitter /X, whatever you want to call it. We'll definitely be doing that on Instagram as well. But yeah, follow us or Beyond the Strange or Jason. You will have no troubles knowing when that's going down on Sunday. So it's going to be a very special episode. And it is not only is it the 10th anniversary of Beyond the Strange, but it will be the last episode of the format that they have been doing for 10 years. Dave's got some plans for some other... Actually, you know what? I'm not going to speak for him, but things will be different after that. So that'll be the last OG-style Beyond the Strange episode on the 10th anniversary. Perfectly timed. So yeah, pretty exciting weekend this weekend. And then also tomorrow, for anybody that's bored out of their mind and literally has nothing to do whatsoever, I'm going to be streaming, I'm going to be playing some games on Twitch. I'm going to go through the whole Shenmue saga, which is obviously going to take months, but I'm going to start tomorrow with the 25th anniversary of Shenmue coming up on December 29th. So there you go. For the 1.5 of you that actually gives any sort of fucks about that. Now, Brad, OG Brad Harris wanted to come on and say hello, but he's not going to be able to tonight, but we'll be hearing from him soon. He does give all of you his hellos. Outside of that, not a whole lot to say up front other than, not going to say that either. All right. So without any further ado whatsoever, without any further gilding the lily and not talking like this for at least another 3 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, author extraordinaire, Canadian extraordinaire, taller than most people you know, and spirit animal to many, ladies and gentlemen, Jason Quitt.
Always a pleasure to be back on The Happens on radio in the middle of the night. It is late here in Canada. We are on the eastern side of these time zones, so it is currently 10:15 p.m. So I'm very happy to be here with all of you again. I think this is my 47th episode. You'll have to fact check me on that one. But thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been, there's not many people that have been on here. I think at this point, you've actually surpassed Doc Ram as far as like most recurrences on this show. That's a good point. I'm gonna have to check that.
Well, it's funny because I went to your website today and I saw the logo on your website from the Crystal Sun. I'm like, it felt pretty good. I'm like, yeah, this is it's a show that I appreciate you and having me on what you do. So, it's always good to have this kind of connection with people over all these years, like, because it goes back. I mean, we usually reminisce on this show of the history of the things of where it all began for us, and it goes back to at least 2015, 2016. So we're getting on.
Exactly. Yeah, I just found a photo from my first Contact in the Desert, 2015, just like you said. And I'm walking out in the middle of the desert. My friend took a photo. I'm wearing Fade to Black Crew 2015 shirt in the middle of Joshua. Just a beautiful shot. I meant to share that before the show tonight, but yeah, just like you said, it's been 2015 was sort of my introduction into the scene, which honestly, at that time, it was just me and my buddy that had an e-juice company. We just wanted to sponsor Jimmy's show, and Les just said, "Hey, come out, like, come meet him, and like, give him your e-juice," and like, that's all we thought of it. But then once I realized, I saw Eric Von Daniken walking around, and at that time I didn't. All those guys, all of you guys were, legends to me, and I was like, oh, this is what's going on. Okay. And then I just immediately got addicted to the scene. And the next thing you know, it's a long story how Dave and Les and Rick invited me over to Beyond the Strange. Total accident. I never planned to do any of this. Not on that show and not this one.
And it's really funny too, because I was talking to Dave. I think it was like Last Contact or the 2 years ago, and we were just kind of reminiscing as well, me and Dave Cruz. And he said like I was one of his first interviews as well, and this was in like 2015, just when he was getting started. He was at a conference in it was a Lorien Fenton conference out in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And that was my first actual US conference. Lorien, I would say, took the chance and invited me out to talk. And Dave Cruz was just sitting with his wife at a table, and he came up to me. He's like, we're doing talks with the speaker. You want to sit down and talk? And we had a great time. He's a great guy. And the rest is history.
Absolutely. And, I don't remember how we ever got talking. Maybe we...
I know when it was.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Of course. It was at Contact in the Desert.
Well, right, yeah. But how did I ever trick you into coming on my show?
Well, it was all back then. It was I'll say 2016. Okay, it was still in the desert.
Yeah, that's the one where
and it was at Jimmy Church's Fade or Not party. And you and Cortana were sitting in the living room area and doing like a live show.
That's right. Yeah.
And obviously when I walked in, like you and Cortana were just kind of like waving me over. Come on, you got to get on for a couple minutes. Jay's here. Get on the show. That's 2016.
Yeah. And folks, if you want to go back and watch it, or listen to that rather, we did do video, but the guy that was doing the video literally fell asleep while he was filming. Oh, you know what? I probably shouldn't say his name anyway. But that is on the B-side playlist on Shift Happens Radio. If you go shifthappensradio.com, go to the B-sides and rarities page, it's deep in the archives there somewhere.
So that's the official first interview with me on Shift Happens.
Yeah. And what's funny is, actually it was the year before, fun fact, and this held up until earlier this year, was in 2015, me and Dave, just like me and Cortana were doing there, like in the middle of the Fader house, we had our whole setup, and we were just a revolving door of Brad Olson and you and Laura and, just anybody we can get over there. We did the same thing the year before, but with Beyond the Strange when we were with them, and that was the only show ever that Rita actually got on and talked, and she talked for like 45 minutes. Great conversation. I don't know if that episode's up anymore. I'm not sure what Dave did with that or if it got taken down, but she didn't even go on her own show that she was producing at the time, Fade to Black and all that. Literally, until a few months ago, that was the only time she went on air for anybody ever. And that was kind of cool. But, I don't know if, I think they're taking a hiatus now, but her and her friends, Lucinda and and her whole crew. They're doing this really cool show. It's kind of like it's hard to explain. It's a really cool idea. I've never heard another show like it. It's like a mix of trivia and call-ins and sort of, I don't know. I hope they're still, well, Elf would probably know what the status is on that. He's in the chat there. Although by this point, he's already booted up Assassin's Creed and he's just listening now.
Well, he's working hard this coming December. We all know why, in his workshop.
Yep, those toys don't make themselves, and
no.
And Elf's been a good sport. He's actually come on here a few times lately, and yeah, we just did a whole show. I think the last show was that, but dude, Elf knows what's up, man. And speaking of which, now I did point this out a few times ago when you were on here, but Elf pointed out on Twitter earlier that boy, you sure do look like Snowden, or Snowden looks like you, rather.
It's very strange because it had never occurred to me until I stepped foot into the San Francisco conference 2015, and I'll never forget this because there's a guy there that part of the AV group, and he works at like all the conferences. And the moment he saw me, he yelled out, "Hey, how's it going, Snowden?" in 2015. And every time I see him, he always waves at me and says, "Hey, Snowden." Now, Pat does that all the time to me.
Yeah, it's not just the looks either. It's also like the cadence and the mannerisms and the way you talk. It is shockingly similar, although you've got probably a solid 10 inches of height on him. Other than that, now speaking of which, Dragon Rose says that Brad Olson might have you topped as far as the height, but I don't know, man. I think it's pretty close.
No. Listen, Brad,
is he 6'4" or 6'7"?
Brad, he's probably close to 7 feet.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, he's big. And I remember the first time I met him, and I shook his hand, and I'm just like, "Thank you." And he's like, "Oh, thanks for what?" I go, "Being taller than me at this conference." And he kind of got offended, but I think he was just messing with me. But we've been good friends ever since. So.
Nice. Yeah, I love Brad. And we just somehow we ended, thanks to Jeff, every once in a while, me and him end up as co-guests on Jeff's show once in a while. And we did that for the Halloween thing they did. And, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I guess he is taller than you, is he?
Absolutely, he's taller than me.
Not by much, though.
Yeah, enough for me to notice, to go, wow, you're big. You're a big guy.
Yeah. Speaking of tall people, have you guys noticed that Shaq has his own gummy candy that you can buy at Walgreens or Rite Aid or CVS, whatever one of those stores you guys have near you? I just saw him out of nowhere, and I'm curious, how much money is he making per bag?
Gummies? What kind of gummies is he making?
Like, how they make like the Lifesavers gummies and like the Starburst gummies, or like Sour Patch Kids, like those kind of things. It's those. There's the sour ones and the regular ones. I don't know. I saw like 5 different colors of bags of it. I forgot what it's called, but Shaq's face on it. You can't miss it.
Oh, and, I thought you were like, when you said gummies, I'm like thinking,
No, not edibles. No.
No.
Well, I mean, these gummies are edible, but you know what I mean. Yeah, not. Well, I would assume they're edible.
Right.
But yeah, no, you're not going to trip balls off it or anything. I don't think. But man, he's had his hand in all sorts of. I don't know if you guys remember the game Shaq Fu, notoriously one of the worst. It was like a Mortal Kombat, Street
For
Fighter. Yeah, and also the Super Nintendo also got disgraced with the version of it as well. Notoriously one of the worst games ever made. In fact, there was a website that ran for about 10 years that was legitimately dedicated to finding and acquiring every copy of the game and burning them. And
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it was a disastrous game.
Because I remember when I was a child and I had the Genesis console. I did have Shaq Fu. I also had I think it's a Michael Jackson game where it's like he kicked people. Like,
Yep.
I forget which one that was.
Yeah, but it was like a platformer like Mario or Sonic, but you could use the basketball to like attack the enemies. And yeah. I forget what that's called too, but I remember that.
Yeah, no more. It wasn't Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
definitely not.
It was like that. The Shaq was like a Mortal Kombat style type of game, like a one-on-one fighter. The Michael Jordan one was like, imagine Mario, but you're Michael Jordan with the basketball, and you throw your ball at people to hit them. And don't get me started on Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. Did you play that on the Genesis?
Yes.
Yeah, so did we all. And, real fun fact before I stop wasting more of your time, folks, is actually, this is one thing I did want to bring up as far as news that none of you really are going to care about, but if you're a video game nerd, you will. Today, Sega delisted 75 games, like all of their classic retro games from all platforms. Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, Steam. It's gone. If you didn't get it by last night, it's gone. And knowing Sega, they're probably not going to come back for another 15 years because they hate all of us. And I say that as a Sega fan. Very tragic. But, if you Sega fans have noticed, or even just general retro game nerds, they have the Sega Classics bundles. You can get the Genesis collection on every console. It comes with like 50 of the greatest Sega games from the Genesis up through the Dreamcast era and all that kind of stuff. But they have Sonic 1, Sonic 2, all the classics, right? But there's always one game missing, and that's Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which technically is two different games, but it's one big game. You plug it in together. Anyway, and the reason why is because Michael Jackson actually did the music for Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but that was right when all the kid diddling stuff was popping up in the 90s, and at the last minute, Sega decided to not associate himself with his name. But if you look at the credits of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, it's Michael Jackson's whole production team for all of his albums. That is the music team on those games. They just left out Michael's name, and for those licensing reasons and also trying to keep it a secret, that is why that game is never included in any Sega compilation ever. And there's like 20 of them. And none of them, to this day, if you want to play that game, you have to go buy a Genesis off eBay and play it that way. Or emulate it, But, and it's funny because it's interesting because if you go and play that game and you listen to the music, it's like, oh, for sure, that's Michael Jackson. Like, it has his signature style, but in that Genesis FM synth soundboard, quality to it, that typical famous Genesis sound that you only get on the Genesis, that sort of almost like electronic, it had more of an electronic beat sound to it rather than like actual acoustic audio. But some interesting news coming out about Michael Jackson recently also, that basically just points to, it sure seems like he kind of got smeared. As easy as it was to believe all the accusations, I don't know. I'm not sure anymore. But that's neither here nor there or there. Hey, what's up, buddy? What's up, rocker? Yeah, beat it, man. I don't care who you are. That's a good song right there. And yeah, but Black Ops. Oh, Sylvain asks, Black Ops 6. Have you played it? It's funny you mentioned that. A few of my friends have finally sucked me into Black Ops 6. Yeah, we do play that. So if you want to play together, let's do that. Speaking of which, I know we've been saying this for like 7,000 years, but me and Jess are going to get back to the game streams. Don't worry, folks. So, all right, now, with all the tomfoolery out of the way, which most of that was quite unnecessary, so I apologize about that, folks. But I'm not sure how much we can get into this, Jason, but I do at least want to point out that you have you just published a paper. Well, you just wrote a paper, an article of sorts that will be published in a very prestigious European journal, which is and I'll let you explain all that in a second, but it's the perfect appetizer. You know, you guys here, we've done the watch parties on Zoom. You've been to Contact in the Desert. The last two books, Gates of the Anunnaki and Astral Genesis, it lays it all out, right? But in the modern world of attention span deficit disorder, it's kind of hard to get people to really, read enough to understand what's being laid out here. Well, Jason has remedied that with his new paper. It's only, technically it's like 22 pages, but if you put all the text together, just the text alone, it's only like 15 pages worth of text, and it gets you right down to the point, and it gets you hooked. And then once you're hooked, there's 2 books for you to dive into the whys and the hows and all of that. So before I spill any more than I should, why don't you let's let everybody know what's going on with that and when they can expect that to come out.
Sure. I was approached by a group that is in Europe, and they run now let me get the names correct, but I believe it's called the Institute of Natural Philosophy, and they publish a magazine, and they also have groups on academic sites where independent researchers can publish papers so that other researchers can read them and cite them and then build off of those theories. So it's just like a regular academic educational site. And anyways, I did a talk with them a couple weeks ago. I think the show will come out soon, I think. But basically they said, look, we like your information, and why don't you write a paper and we'll publish it in the magazine, which is coming out in January. So it's going to be the first month of 2025. And I said, that's a great idea. And they said, just make it 15 pages. I tried my best. It went a little long, but basically I took the theories. I wouldn't even say theories. I would say the rediscoveries in the last 2 books, Gate of the Anunnakis and Astral Genesis. And I was starting to kind of put it down in a way that lays it out so simply using real life picture examples and just documenting what it's showing through different cultures going back in time. And what does it actually mean to history? What does it mean to our knowledge if what I'm presenting is accurate? So hopefully this information will get into the right hands. I'm trying to enter into a completely different group or circle of people that is not part of our community at all. So I have to be very concise and to the point.
Right.
And, I can't really say anything outside of this is the evidence that I'm presenting.
Yep, and I think that's for various reasons. That probably is as much as we should say right now, just because this community. Somebody gets a hold of something. Next thing you know, they wrote it, and So we're just going to wait until that is there. But like you just said, yes, this is the perfect way to reach this other communities that otherwise would not be privy to this sort of information, and or wouldn't come across it, rather. And this is a very can we name the publication yet, or should we just hold on to that?
We'll hold on to it. Right. I actually finished the paper, and what I do with my work is I send it to someone smarter than me, which is Gigi, and I say, give this a read through and let me know what you think. And then that's how I'm on the show tonight, because we connected, and he read through the paper. And what's very interesting about this work is, as I was writing this new article, it dawned on me that I was missing another piece. And it was so simple and right in front of me. So that extra added piece is in this new article. And I'll just say it has to do with the moon. So you have the sun and the moon, and some of these rediscoveries, it's just crazy how pinpoint, precise, and accurate this information is once you put in, or once you understand what's going on. And I think that's all I can say. But what it does is it proves that they were a whole lot smarter than we have realized.
Not only, and I'll add just as tiptoeily, that not only that they were much smarter than we give them credit for, but they were that smart way further back than we thought they even could have been. And on top of that, the techniques that they used to incorporate this knowledge, whether it's architecture or, three-dimensional, for lack of a better word, chiseled reliefs, just everything that they left for us to discover is, talk about being forced to rewrite history. And it's not like, because there's other people that are trying to prove the same point, but through different avenues of research, like Graham Hancock, for example. Whereas now I'm a huge Graham Hancock fan, but in Randall Carlson and Ben Van Kerkwyk and that whole side of the thing. But the thing with their stuff is there's a lot of room for conjecture. There's a lot of room for, it could mean this, it could be this. But with what Jason's got here and has broken down to a very easily short, readable, 22-page thing here, is this is beyond conjecture. Like that classic example of this is like, if you had a pile of junk and a tornado came through, and then by the end of the tornado, all that junk just magically assembled into a perfect set, airplane with everything in place and the nuts and bolts in place. Like it's that far beyond coincidence. Like just all the angles, all the measurements, the representations of those angles and ratios. It is so far beyond coincidence in so many different cultures around the world. And you're only focusing on, quite a few different cultures, but there's, I guarantee you, just like, I'm not sure how much we talked about this before, but to give you some context, folks, Jason and I, and by Jason and I mean just Jason, I just started the Zoom call, and then Jason presented his whole thing to Michael Cramo, who we've had on the show multiple times. And as you guys know, he is very tied into ancient India and the Vedas and the Puranas and that whole scene. And he was having us pause through the presentation to point out, like, hey, this same representation is over here in the Veda text. And which is something, I think we're going to see more and more of, is that even the various cultures that you've clearly shown that they're all using the same stuff. These ancient India folks, they're using it too. This literally is a worldwide, and that is one thing that Graham definitely does have right, is however this information was transferred, whether it's all this information came from the same source and it spread, or if these civilizations had some way to communicate overseas with each other, however it is, this information came from a source, and the whole world had access to it way before even basic mathematics were, according to our textbooks, things like trigonometry and stuff, before that was even invented, which you would need to have in order to understand this, which clearly existed before that.
And what's really interesting is that, and you just touched on it, is that this is something that has to be taught. It's not something that a random culture is just going to figure out and say, okay, I'm going to, do this thing. It's like a meticulous system of hiding something in plain sight. And what they're hiding in plain sight is this code. I won't really get into what this code is, but if you've read my book, you'll know. But basically, this is something that has to be passed down and has to be taught. There is no other explanation as to how they would come to this. And I remember that that call with Michael Cremo, and I actually, I'm a big fan of his. I've had his books for so many years. I think we started the call with me showing him the original copy of his book that I bought like 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so I was very happy to see him. I was very nervous because, you're talking to someone that like you grew up reading their book. And I remember, presenting this information to him. He stopped me so many times, and he's like, I'm going to stop you because I want to pull apart what you're saying. And he would break down what I'm saying, goes, now explain that to me. And I did. He's like, this is incredible. Like this matches exactly what I'm figuring out in the Vedic texts and all these things. So there is these incredible connections that I think once I lay down the foundation, like I'm doing very simply, all these other researchers can take it to their area of research and go, wow, this actually is real and exists. And they can make their own discoveries with that information. So for me, this is really exciting. And, like, how did I start in this scene? It's like I did not start in this community with this type of information. I had no idea about this type of information, but somehow it managed to, some people will say download or just come to you. It was just a eureka moment that I had that just goes, wait a second, what is this? And I couldn't stop pulling that string, and now we're here today.
Yeah, and because it's, other people have taken a crack throughout academic history to try to see what you have seen and laid out in your books, but they haven't been able to do it. You definitely have some sort of you were just meant to be the one to spell this out for people. Like, I think there's other people that they knew that something was there, but they just couldn't figure out how to make sense of it. Whereas you really are the first one, and that's my little whatever you call it, my little quote or whatever in your book is like, dude, like this information. I'll paraphrase what I said. I don't have the book. I have
the book in front of me. Hold on, where is?
Oh yeah,
because you're right. It says, just as we look at generations past. Oh, you're a good writer. Just as we look at generations past and their misunderstandings of the world, a new paradigm is emerging that will one day look back at our current understandings in the same way. The information in this book lays a significant foundation for this new paradigm.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And which, by the way, that's so crazy that I have my quote. Because if you look at the other quotes, it's like Clyde Lewis, Jimmy Church, and then like me. Somehow I'm in there. But so that was pretty cool. Is there another chat room, MJ? No, not yet. This is the only chat room, MJ, for now. But just in a few weeks, we will have another chat. Yeah, the chat room will not be on Spreaker starting in a couple of episodes. So we'll keep you posted on that. But yeah, this really is, and you obviously share this frustration, but I think, this new article is going to help a lot with that, in terms of, like, there's so many people that are seeking what you have laid down. The only problem is the attention span. Like, just, especially in the age of TikTok and Instagram, and like, people just are not, even if they want to know something and they know that the answer is there, or at least that the next step of their understanding is there, they just can't sit themselves down and read a book. And I think this article that's about to come out in that journal is going to be, I think that's going to do a lot. That's going to be a big move. That's going to be a big step towards getting people, and then not to mention your work that'll be coming out in the next year or two as well, on top of that.
See, I just, and because I'm doing it open source, basically, making it public. So it's going to be publicly available online to download. It'll be on my website. You can read it right off the website or download it. I'll post it on social media. For me, it's not about selling the book. It's about, here is this rediscovery that you should be paying attention to. Because if you pay attention to this discovery, not only will it answer some questions for you, but it will cut the bullshit. And, I love using the example of the Dendera light bulb.
Right.
Because, you see this you go to any type of like alternative Egypt conspiracy, whatever. And it's all about this Dendera light bulb that's found in Egypt, or a relief on the wall. And there is so many theories of, what is this? What are they trying to depict? And what I find really frustrating is there is literally hieroglyphic texts above it and next to it that tell you exactly what the scene is. It's like, this is what it is. But, and it was all about the renewal of life. But I've taken it to a level where I've literally decoded every single aspect of that image, and every single line in that image. And by doing that, just by seeing how it is broken down, it gives you a completely different understanding of what it actually is represented of. So, once that's out there and once people see what it actually shows, then all these questions and theories about, what this thing is can, I hope, be put to rest. But I don't think it will ever be put to rest. They'll always say it's some type of technology light bulb, even though I can show quite the opposite.
Yeah, and that same exact example goes with, same thing with Pillar 43. Göbekli Tepe. I've said this before in the show, but and again, to bring up Graham Hancock, in his first season of his Netflix documentary, there's a scene in episode 6 or 7 where him and this other guy are looking at Pillar 43. And this was, at that time when that came out, that was before even Astral Genesis came out. So at that time, you listen to Graham's, guess as to what it means, and you listen to the other guys, and they both, at the time, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I see what they're getting at, okay. And you listen to the other guy, oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense too. But then your book comes out, And it's like, oh shit, everybody's not even close. Like, this is clearly what this means. And here we are, almost 2 years later, uh, and still these, we've definitely tried our best. We've reached a few people and whatnot, but it's literally just a matter of time. It's just a matter of this information being consumed by those types of researchers and the whole community. And it's like it's beyond conjecture. It's beyond coincidence. It's very clear. It's very precise. And I don't know a lot of people, I don't know anybody really, that would actually be able to sit down and see those patterns and ratios and everything that you spelled out for people. I don't know anybody like boy, if you came to this earth for just one reason, this is it right here.
Oh, thank you. Because, there's a gentleman who wrote a great book. His name is John McHugh. And he wrote a book called, hold on, let me grab it so I won't screw up here. Oh. Okay, I just came back from the library. It was a long trip. The Celestial Code of Scripture by John McHugh. And this person is a professor, and he's also part of the Utah Society of Archaeoastronomy. So, this is like a real deal professor, works writing real papers for universities. And just like I did with Michael Cremo, I did a Zoom presentation with him where I laid out the information, and he was so excited about this information, and he was like, I have to tell this person and this person, and he goes, they'll never this is quite a hard pill to swallow in the academic circles, but like people that are open in the academic circles like John, were so excited to have this type of information coming onto the scene, and he couldn't wait to tell his friends about it. So it's right there. And that's what I love about this work is I'm not telling people, like, I'm not saying this is my theory. I'm putting the creation of those ancient civilizations right on the paper. And all I'm doing is showing you the code in that image, and it's the same as all the other civilizations. And once you have that code, it all lines up. And when I mean it all lines up, it's crazy. I don't even know how they artistically could do it. There's someone I recently met on Twitter. Let me just grab his profile here, because this guy he put out a book that's absolutely amazing. Let me just grab his information here. His name is Jose Barrera, and he wrote a book of Dendera, Temple of Time, the Celestial Wisdom of the Ancients. And he took I don't even know how many pictures. He took thousands of pictures of the Dendera Temple in Egypt, and he pieced them all together. So you can actually, if you haven't been to Egypt, you can go to his website and you can zoom right in to any detail on that ceiling in super high def image. And so I'm just looking at this spread at the Temple of Dendera, where it's basically the last temples of Egypt. All right, this is in the Greco-Roman times of Egypt. So this is right at the end of Egyptian culture. So all their information, all their knowledge was basically put on the walls in Dendera. put on the ceiling of Dendera, everything that they've learned over the thousands of years of Egypt. And there's this one scene with Osiris, with Isis and Nephthys on the solar boat going to resurrect Osiris. And there's all these symbols on this artwork. And I just started to say, okay, let's put the code on this image. And it's stunning what this image shows. So I contacted Jose and I said, because he wrote the book, like he's the man for the Dendera temple. Like he knows everything about this temple. Okay. He's like an encyclopedia, this guy. And so I also sent him the paper, and he allowed me to use his images, which is like so incredible that he just said, I support this work and please use, you can use these images. So it's amazing that you can connect with these people and share this information, and they're so open to it. They're just like, yeah, do it, go for it.
Yeah, because I mean, the way you've laid it out, and it's undeniable. So guys like that, that also are in the same sort of mindset of just, there's no ego involved. There's no Hollywood shit going on. Like it's just, let's figure out what's going on. And it's
that's what I love. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a matter of like, dude, like everybody's watched all 8 seasons of Game of Thrones. What is that? Like 60 hours? Like, dude, just read this book and it'll change your life. Like it'll change your understanding. And it's really interesting to me how, this horse has been beaten to death on all kinds of shows, but like seriously, like science is like follow the evidence. That's what science is. Like leave everything else out, follow the evidence. But when it comes to this, boy, all of your archaeologists and theologians and, just you name the discipline. If they're so opposed to any new paradigms or understandings or anything new. It's like all these quote unquote scientists are the most opposed to the scientific method of following the evidence.
I see it on Twitter all the time, because Twitter X now, it's basically the only social media site I go on these days. And there's so many of these archaeologists on there, or people that support archaeology, and I see this battle constantly between alternative thinkers and the establishment, and you see it live every single day on Twitter. And the funniest thing about it is, like, people will post this professor from this university is on a vendetta against, let's say, Graham Hancock, right? And I'm like, who is that? And I'll click their name, and I'm like, I'm already blocked by these people. I don't even know these people. I'm already blocked by them. It's crazy that I can't interact with any of these people because I'm preemptively blocked. So obviously either they've heard of me, or I've hit a nerve, or they're just like, this guy is alternative. Like, I'm not even going to get into their world.
Yeah, well, I can guarantee you it definitely has to do with your last 2 books, because that's where, not to say that all of your previous work doesn't have its significance, but this is what you've been doing these last 2.5 years is, or what's come out at least from you in the last 2.5 years. You've been working a lot longer than that to get this out, but what's come out is obviously, you're on a list or 2 or 3 or 5 for sure. And I've already, how many more lists do I need to be? I don't give a shit. I just want to get, just like you, I just want to get this information out. It's literally just a matter of putting this information in front of, like, there's there's no, like, this is the kind of stuff you can't twist and misconstrue into some other anything. Like, this is what it is. It's very clear. And so, yeah, for sure, these people. Now, I would like and hope to think that, these guys, your everyday archaeologists and university teachers that teach archaeology or religious history or any of the subjects that sort of ancient history that sort of tie into what this affects. I would like to imagine that they're just operating on what they were taught, and they just read their textbooks. And boy, when you look at the history of education, and that all ties back into the Rockefeller family and all, that's a whole nother episode right there. But I would like to think most, mainstream academics that are anywhere associated in this field, it's not their fault that they're not looking at this, because they're told not to by people that they were taught are legit people to learn from. But there seems to be a hierarchy that is above them, the ones that were their professors back in the day, the people that write the textbooks, the people that control the education system, that for some reason they do not want people. It's not just our country. This is an international, global thing. Out of all of your, quote unquote conspiracies or alternative theories, whether it's anything, UFOs, assassinations, government coups, or ancient history, whatever it is, like, let me put it this way. They will they'll admit to you 50 times over what actually happened to JFK before they ever let you know anything about our actual history. For some reason, that is the one thing, that and also the nature of our reality. That's the other thing, which really, they go hand in hand, honestly. That's the main thing that they want to steer everybody away from. And I think, honestly, I'm a UFO guy just like all of us, but boy, I think they are intentionally letting us going down the wrong, put out a couple bits of information. If somebody comes to the wrong conclusion and it's catching on, they'll give them a TV show. Ancient aliens. Like, yeah, think about that for 15 years. As long as you don't think about what's actually going on, Like, that just... So who are those people? And what is... Why do they not want us to understand what is so terrifying to them to having us understand the actual history and origins and nature of our history and reality?
Yeah. And, it goes back to, let's say, as an example, Christopher Columbus. It's like we have this whole idea of North America based on this one ship coming here and making this discovery. And then you have artifacts showing up. Let's say, like in Canada, there's, the natives put petroglyphs of like Viking boats on the stones, obviously coming before Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, like 500 years before, at least.
Right. So, but it's not talked about. So it's like they can show it and say, oh, this is Viking boats, but it's never going to like change the history books. The history books will always be that he was the one to discover it, And when I was doing this research, and, the people that know the work, it's all about the Earth's axial tilt, the sun and the moon and all these kind of cycles. It's all about cycles and how it works. And when I go back into general history, if you just Google and say, who was the first person to measure the Earth's tilt? and it will only take you back about 2,000 years. And say the first, it's basically the Greeks. The Greeks figured it out with their mathematics, and shadows. They figured it out 2,000 years ago. And what I am showing, and I didn't go further back, I didn't want to go too controversial on the article. So I only showed examples going back to 2500 BC, so about 4,500 years ago. I just go right back to like, this is where we believe the pyramids are built. So I'm just going to go as far back as that example just to get this information out there.
Right, yeah.
And, just whet the palate, obviously. Get them to see it. But that's 2,500 years before the history books tell us when these things were discovered. So it's the same thing with Columbus. It's like we can, and you hear this argument all the time. It's like you can look at the pyramids of Egypt and they're like, well, how did they figure this out? How did they figure out to align to true north? How did they figure like certain alignments of the pyramid? How did they do that at 2,500 BCE? And they just kind of leave it like as a mystery. Like, we don't know how they did it, but somehow they did it. But honestly, it wasn't discovered until modern times. So they always kind of discount these more ancient societies. And then they kind of, with this whole woke culture now, it's almost like if anybody comes out and says, actually, they did know, they'd be like, are you racist?
Yeah.
Like, are you saying that the whites were over there and they taught them? I'm like, no, I never said that. I said the culture that lived, the ancestral culture that lived there knew this stuff. Why is that racist?
Yep, that's what they're doing to Graham right now.
It makes no sense. Then they're like, well, you're implying that they were taught by these Atlanteans who were white, and this is the whole extremism, right-wing extremism that, started World War II. And we're like, no, we never said any of that stuff. We're talking about their culture. Why are you like labeling us a certain way for trying to show you something different? It's in my mind, it's stunning and crazy at the same time. And I think Graham is actually handling it pretty good.
Yeah.
Luckily, he has someone in his corner like Joe Rogan, who will basically back him up on things, because he can see both sides and go, this is not making sense and this is making sense. And I think this is why the archaeological community is just basically losing their mind over these alternative theories, because if you were to take any of these alternative theories, like mine, for example, or Grant Hancock's, or even if he's wrong about so many things, if one of the things he says is correct, or if one of the things I'm saying is correct, it means all of this work that has been built up for the past couple hundred years, which is the establishment of the basic academic thought of our history, they are now forced to rewrite. They're forced to say, we were wrong. And now that we have this new information, we have to correct this whole library that goes back 200 years or plus of our understanding of our history. And I think this is why they're fighting against it so much, and why it's not allowed.
Yeah, and not only, at the highest levels of these gatekeepers, not only do they have to rewrite history, but they have to come up with a whole nother way to spin it in this rewritten way to where you still don't understand what happened, because they're always going to try to keep that locked down. They're never just going to let you know straight up how it was, how they knew it. Somebody out there knows, and I think you've even said before on the show, like, you're like, there's, especially if you look at like Mystery of Cathedrals, the guy like Falconelli, like there have been people that have pointed out some of the things that you're pointing out now, but they're what am I trying to say here? It's I think you actually used this term earlier. You've rediscovered this, and really the ground you're breaking here is you're the first person to come out publicly with this. And the perfect example is, because obviously throughout both your books, and obviously the paper coming out, it's very clear that, not like you said, you only went back as far as 4,500 years ago, but this goes back, there's examples of this in Göbekli Tepe, 12,000 years. And it goes even, you can see it I've noticed just in the Gudang Padang stuff, I've seen, this, who knows how long it goes back. But I'm trying to put this linearly, like it's somebody has had, it's not like, okay, think about it this way. This information was encoded architecturally and in the reliefs of structures that existed before the Ice Age. Not just 4,500 years ago, but also 8,000 years ago, also 12,000 years ago, also potentially 24,000 years ago. So this information survived through the Ice Age, through the Younger Dryas, all the way up to Da Vinci, and then all of a sudden, just everybody forgot it? Are you sure? No, 100%. This information has been kept. Somebody has this information, and somebody is keeping this from the public. And I think that's where you come in. You're the first one that's really, and other people have taken a crack at it, but nobody's really put it together like this. And as far as bringing it to the public, and you're the first person to do this publicly. And with that, that's why I'm always sort of like, there's definitely a certain level of being careful that should be taken seriously as far as coming out with this. Because obviously,
I didn't say it with too many words, but I hope you caught what I put in the article, because I put it down in more than one occasion in the article.
Yeah.
And I talked about how these ancients knew how to measure the sky, dividing the sky into 15 degree arcs, which 15 degrees is per hour. So they knew about 24-hour 15 arcs. So 24 times 15 is 360. So the only way they would know this is that they knew the Earth was round. The only way they can make these calculations is by knowing the Earth is round. And, we're basically taught that everybody thought the world was flat until, we basically admitted it recently, just like a couple hundred years ago. But if they had math to calculate all these things, and they're showing you they're calculating it, they have to know that it's round. So it's not like an assumption like, oh, yeah, they thought the world was flat, but they based this system on a circular globe. That doesn't make any sense. You're now stretching the truth to try to fit into your reality.
Right. Yeah, and I guess that is a whole another aspect of, I would say, the mid-level, like not the top big they, but the people that were taught by them that think that they're regurgitating the right information, they just, they don't have a reason to question, like, why would these, head honchos of the education system lie to me? I got this prestigious job. Like, obviously, they don't suspect anything. And they don't, like, and it's interesting when you bring up to these people, like, these huge monkey wrenches that totally discount everything that they and we were taught. They just simply like, Like they just shut
Just
it up.
walk away.
Yeah. It's like, what are you doing really? Like, do you not want to know what's going on? And to be fair, there definitely are some people like, I've said this a lot of times in the show, but like one of my best friends, he's come around now, but when I first started doing this show, he wasn't tuning in. And so I would just give him the cliff notes, like, oh, dude, we had Greg Braden on, and we talked about this, or whatever it was. And then after a few weeks of doing that, he just finally, like, he was like, hey, like, listen, like, I know you guys know what you're talking about, like, but it actually kind of freaks me out, and I don't want to know. I was like, oh, I didn't even consider that, and there definitely are some people that it makes them uncomfortable, especially someone that's already been on the planet for 40, 50, 60 years, to all of a sudden have their whole understanding of reality, like everything you've ever believed, is just not only not accurate, but intentionally falsely taught to you to make you believe false shit. Like that's a hard pill to swallow for some people. For a lot of people, for more people than I would have thought, as I've come to discover.
I just think that we're on a path that's been laid out by distortions. All right, and there are many things I will not talk about live on air. We could talk off air of these, because these topics, they're too much for people. Because when you start pulling or putting holes in people's belief systems, you talk about religion, you could talk about academic beliefs, all these different beliefs of our reality. The moment you start poking holes in this, and it's like obvious that you're right, that you're not a conspiracy theory, you're showing them something and they're like, wait a second, how can this be? And it goes into complete denialism. Like, you can't show me that, because what you're saying is everything that I was taught, or everything that I've been taught to believe. Now you're telling me that I have to question this. And for a lot of people, they cannot break that cycle. They will not break that cycle. And it's not up to me or you to get into somebody else's belief systems and say, hey, buddy, you're wrong.
Right.
You can't do that. The only thing we can do is present something, present some evidence, present some information, and the people that are open to it will pick up on it, and hopefully that idea, because we always say that, truth always rises to the top. And it doesn't matter how much you lie or how much distortions you add to our reality, there will always be people that just will figure it out. They'll figure it out, they'll know about it, and that is the heart of the thing. So, we could talk about this until our faces are blue. And I think this is why I'm writing this article that's just clean, just easy. It's something that you just can't outrightly refute, because it's right in front of you. I'm not editing anything. I'm not doing any mental gymnastics to try to make a theory fit to something that it clearly doesn't fit. I'm literally showing you, this is what they did. Now do you understand?
Yeah, it speaks for itself without any shadow of a doubt. And without any question. And yeah, there's this, some people are just, like I was saying, they're not interested in having their paradigm changed. What they've believed has worked for them, and you just got to let those people do their thing, But there's some people where, in some situations where it's like, wow, this person, what they're trying to do with their life, if they knew this information, this would help them tremendously. but they're still at the same time in that camp where they're not ready to just get the full tilt boogie download right there. So in that case, you really just, depends on the person, but find something that just one little tidbit of information that they would find interesting. And don't give them the whole thing. Just be like, oh, did you know this little bit of trivia? And let them, and just give them dangle little half carrots in front of them until they start asking questions. Then once they start asking questions, then you can put your foot on the gas a little bit. But there's a lot of people where if you in good faith just want to relay information to them, but they are not in a mindset to be willing to accept that, you're actually going to have the opposite effect of what you're intending. You're actually going to push them further away from realizing what you want to share with them. There's a delicate balance to doing that.
There's a very interesting phenomenon that I've witnessed more than once, and I don't think it's because I'm boring. But basically, I remember back in the day when I didn't really have anybody to talk to about this stuff. And let's say I would try to talk to a family member about it. I'll start to talk about it and they fall asleep on the couch. They just their consciousness just goes.
Yeah.
It's like they just shut down. It's like, oh, what did you say? Nothing. I didn't say anything. You fell asleep.
I've had that too. Yes, exactly that actually. Yeah.
And for me, it's just like a sign you know what? Whatever path they're on, they cannot take this information because it'll pull them off what they're supposed to be doing, whatever that is. And I respect that. I'm not here to pull anybody.
Yeah. Same here. It took me a while to realize that. But yeah, now it's even something as simple as if you're at a dinner table with a bunch of people and they're all talking about something and you have some bit of information that they're all missing, I used to give it 3 tries, then I narrowed it down to 2, but now it's just once. I will start, I'll just test it out. Oh, did you guys know about this? And if something happens and I get cut off or the waiter comes up and brings the butter and everybody forgets, I just stop right there. And I don't bring it up unless somebody asks me to continue. But you can't force it. You can't force
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I am not a talker. I honestly, talking is the worst activity I can do. I don't like talking to anybody. I live in my own mental world, introvert. And I don't see, I talk online. I do all these interviews and I go to these conferences and I do the talks. But outside of that, if you knew me in real life, it's I'm the quiet one. I don't say a word to anybody. My wife does all the talking, thank God. And I only talk to people, just simple conversations, unless they ask me a deep question, and then I'll open up and I'll talk. But I don't give things away, and you shouldn't just offer this information to people unless they're asking for it. You come and ask me a question, I'll answer it for you, but I'm not going to come to you and say, hey, did you hear about the sun passing through the stars and what it means to be in this constellation at this time of year? Why would I ever do that unless, I'm talking to someone who knows that subject just as well as me?
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I'm right there with you, really. I mean, I'm not quite as introverted, but I'm becoming more and more introverted every day. I just I almost literally tell myself every day, just stop talking to people. Just stop. I'm tired of annoying people. I'm tired of talking to brick. I don't know. It's kind of like you just said. If somebody specifically asks me something that I happen to know about, or I can lead them in a direction of, for sure. But I'm totally over I'm not like a Mormon knocking on your door anymore, trying to, dude, did you hear about the UFO stuff? Just no, just we've got our audience here,
Yeah.
and
And
that's it.
that's another thing is that, I don't want to say we've been here for a long time, but we've been in this community long enough to see cycles, to see certain
Yes.
people come in, certain information come in, what is fully rejected, what is accepted. There's certain people that come into the community, they make wild claims, they get very popular, and next year you don't even remember their names. It's like, I think we've been here long enough to see those cycles in a lot of people. And because of that, we've grown a lot. I remember coming in here at the beginning. This is at the start of when we came into this scene publicly, it was all about the secret space program. I mean,
Yeah.
that was like the most popular topic. All the conferences wanted the top people in like secret space program and all this.
Yeah.
And you had these kind of like UFO celebrities and they had these narratives and all this stuff. And it's like, if you weren't talking about that stuff back then, it's like, you wouldn't even like get on the ticket. It's
Right.
like you had to kind of be aligned to certain narratives. And then very quickly you see all the stuff fall away because it wasn't true. And these people weren't true. And, people figure it out very, very quickly and the community rejects it. So things change constantly. And I think that the more people stay in this community, they're going to see these cycles like we've seen these cycles and not like get so excited when certain things happen because we're like, okay, that happened 10 times plus since I've been here with the same outcome each time. So I'm not going to like go out and go crazy and make shows about it and, broadcast it to the world. I'll sit back and say, okay, I'm going to watch this train wreck happen again.
Right. And yeah, I think the community has definitely, as a whole, we've grown and it's grown and has gotten better. Yeah, I'm so glad the whole 20 and back secret space program era is over, and I'm really excited with Captain Ron and his team taking over Contact. Now I love Victoria and that whole crew too that did it before, but I really appreciate Ron's sort of he's weeding out all the nonsense, keeping it down to the real information. The last two Contact in the deserts, and the most recent one improved even from the one before that. Just narrowing it down to like we just want real information, no bullshit. Like let's and you'll notice since Ron took it over, there are certain people that haven't been there since then, and there's new great people that have been there since then as well. So I'm very happy in the direction that's going. Other conferences are still, they have some of the good stuff, but there's sure still a lot of, But what can you do? At least it's going in the right direction as of right now. But like you said, who knows? We might cycle back into another era of some nonsense. But right now it's looking good. Right now it's looking good.
Well, I always had this thing, or I always had this philosophy of doing these conferences because sometimes you'll be on a conference that has very questionable people on it. And then you'll get some feedback like, Jay, like, why is your picture next to this person? Why are you doing panels with this person? Like, do you know what they're about? And I always say, thank God I'm on the conference with them. Thank God I'm on the panel with them because you're going to get a completely different perspective. And hopefully the people will know the difference in quality of research or quality of information to hear two opposing voices at the same conference.
Great point.
I mean, if I wasn't there, and like I remember, like I can't. I've done panels with Corey Good. I've done panels with David Wilcock. Like, I I've had the time of my life. Like that was like, for me, that was like so fun to be like, I forget which contact it was, but they sat me right next to Corey, and I was just like in between things, I would like turn to Corey and like crack jokes to him, and he would never laugh. He wouldn't even smile, and I'm like, okay. He'll turn to like Richard Dolan and say something, and he'll like start like crying, laughing. I'm like, there's a huge difference here.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Man, I remember the very first Corey Good appearance. His first conference, it was at a Conscious Life Expo. And like retroactively looking back on it, it was very telling. I mean, I forget who was hosting the panel, but it was mostly about Corey Good. It was his debut to the community. Man, he looked like he was on trial for murder. Like, he did not look comfortable. He wasn't happy. He wasn't smiling. He looked like the Apollo 11 astronauts at the press conference. It was like that kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like, something's off. Yeah. And, well, and look what happened. But, yeah, and that's another thing, too, you know, just as far as getting a sense of, like, who's doing what and why, and in like where their heart is in it, you know, is being able to crack a joke or two and actually relate on a human level. And then you've got some guys that are just, I mean, we've had some, you know, some of the bigger names we've had on this show. Boy, I would sure have been let down in terms of, like, you know, there's a couple of guests where I wanted to talk about some of the great work they did like back like 15, 20 years ago. And they don't want to talk about it because they have a new book out, and they only want to talk about that because they just want to sell that book. It's like, got it, but dude, not enough people know about this other thing. It's like, And then you start looking into them more, and it's like I understand some of these guys, you know, it's their job, you know, they got to make money, they got to make a living. But when it gets to that point where you're prioritizing, you know, this sort of that Hollywood shit, as I call it, you know, they lose touch of what it's about, and it's just not to say that they're not always, you know, that all of their work is not legit, but it's like they lose the reason why they're doing it. And they get caught up in the celebrity of it all sometimes, but also the money as well. And that's one thing, you know, I really respect about guys like you, and is even, you know, no matter what sort of book deal or if Gaia gave you a series or whatever, like, your approach would not change. Like, you would be doing it for the same reasons. And you would actually, you know, you wouldn't be tricked into signing a contract to only talking about this. Or, like, you're going to keep it home. You're going to, you know, for lack of a better term, keep it OG, keep it real. Like, you're not persuadable in that way. And I think that, you know, over time is going to, I mean, you do big shows, you know, but the more and more you do those, and the more you get out there, the more conferences, it's just a matter of time before people feel that energy, feel that from you. And like you said, when you're on the panels with those other types of guys, it's glaringly clear, like, where the genuineness is.
Yeah. So I you know what, like, I'm actually going to be on Captain Ron's show coming up this week next week. And it's like, they work so hard. Contact in the Desert, Conscious Life Expo, all these conferences, you know, people don't know how much work goes into it. And just to even get the right people in there. And they took a chance. I don't know if I ever, for sure I told this story. But like I said, I was at that conference in San Francisco with Dave Cruz and Lorian Fenton way back 2015.
Yeah.
And it was the first time in the States speaking. I was talking about and back then, see, I was like completely different speaker. Back then I was talking about out-of-body experiences and how it relates to contact experiences. So that was kind of like my main talk there. And the room was packed. At least a couple hundred people in this room. And unbeknownst to me, but Paul Andrews was in the audience. And if you don't know, Paul Andrews was one of the owners of Contact in the Desert. And he came to see George Norrie. He was having a meeting with George Norrie, and he only came during that time. Okay. Yeah. So he managed to come to this conference at the exact time that I was speaking. So he sat down and he listened to me talk, my first talk. And then after my talk, he came up to me and he goes, "Hi, I'm Paul, and I just heard your lecture, and it was fantastic." And then he goes, "Have you heard of Contact in the Desert?" I'm like, "Of course I've heard of Contact in the Desert. That's like the Woodstock, of expos for this type of information." And he goes, "Well, yeah, and so I'm part owner, and I want to just tell you that we're booked. We don't have any spots at Contact in the Desert."
Oh, thanks.
But this is what he said to me. He goes, "If someone drops out, you're now my first choice. Nice. If somebody drops out, will you come to Contact in the Desert?" And I said, "Paul, you can tell me the week before I'll come out."
Yeah.
And that's what happened. He called me up. He goes, "Jay, this person dropped out." He goes, "Could we put you in their spot?" And I said, "Of course." And the rest is history. So think about that for a second, of how that one interaction just set off a chain reaction to, place me into this Contact in the Desert scene and open me up to this larger audience of people. So, I get emails a lot from people. I spoke to people before who, they write books, they're researchers, but they've never been invited to speak anywhere. It's hard. It's very hard to get on these conferences. And sometimes you really have to do the legwork. Like, you have to get up and you have to talk. I think for the first handful of years, I paid everything.
Right.
That's the other thing. Flight. Yeah. I paid for my flight. I paid for my hotel. I paid for my booth. I paid for everything at these conferences. And what I would do is I'd set up a little table and put up some crystals, some books, whatever I had, and pray that hopefully I can break somewhat even, But for me, it wasn't really about that. It was like, my name is there. People are going to get to know me. Great investment. And most people won't do that. They'll sit down and say, "Why aren't you offering me this?"
Yeah. And that's that sort of attitude, like, why am I not getting, that's your one-way ticket to not getting in the scene. If you think, you can't, and that just all ties back to the why you're doing it, the genuineness of what you're doing, and because unless you're Giorgio Tsoukalos or one of those TV celebrities, listen, folks, hardly any of those, you go to those conferences, hardly anybody's, I'm not going to say too much on that. But yes, there is, actually the skateboarding industry is very much the same way, and that's how a lot of guys get weeded out, is like, you know, whereas some people with the same skill would kill to be in that position and sacrifice anything to even have a shared part in America's next video or whatever. But then you have other guys with the same skill level who are bitching and complaining the whole time. How come I'm not getting paid like that? Like, okay, this is, you're obviously not in this for what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I do like that. Obviously, it is frustrating, you know, but it's not as frustrating if you're in it for the right reasons, you know? Yeah, and that's just how it goes.
And I even remember like Coast to Coast, like we're talking Coast to Coast 10 years ago. And I remember it's like you get invited on, you have a great show, everybody loves your work. And then like you'll call up the producers and you'll say like, can I come again? And they'll just be like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope, no, you can't come. And they're like, but if you want, next time you write a book, next time you have something big in the works, give us a call. You know, it's like, it kind of like forces you to say like, okay, I have to actually work at this. Yep. I have to actually have something to present that's out there that people can understand. So, you know, in a way, it weeds out a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a reason for that process. Although I do think the process is definitely shifting, no pun intended. Not initially, now fully embraced. You know, because now, like, just random people like me, well, not me specifically, but people like me, just computer and a camera in their room, having people call over Skype and doing interviews, they have more viewers than CNN gets in a whole week. You know what I mean? So the landscape is definitely changing. But still, though, you know, your Coast to Coast AMs, your Clyde Lewis's, those are still milestones, you know, and there still is, yeah, it's definitely, because the information is one thing, but also
it's the relationships. You got to build these relationships, and it's very difficult to do through emails. You know, it's even difficult to do at conferences because everybody's busy and running from one thing to the next. And it's like I had the opportunity to go visit Clyde in where is he? In not Seattle.
I think he's in Oregon somewhere.
Or Oregon, but what's that city in Oregon?
Portland?
Portland, yes. So I went to Portland and got a chance to go hang out at their studio. And, you know, we've become great friends ever since. We share the same birthday. So every year, February 22nd, I'm on Ground Zero and we have a dual birthday together, me and Clyde. So it's nice. Like you develop these relationships with these people, and it's great. It's like when you go to the conferences, I get to see you, I get to see Clyde, Jimmy. Like it's like a family reunion. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Dude, and Clyde is good people, man. I don't care what anybody says. He's such a fun guy. He's just all the best qualities. And I had the honor of, you know, I got to introduce you, and I also got to introduce Clyde Lewis and Jason Martell, two Jasons. And Clyde Lewis and me and Clyde just sat there and kicked it for like half an hour before the thing. And I was surprised he remembered me from before. But man, to be honest, I don't know if I want to host again. I mean, I definitely would like to introduce you, but I don't know. I don't like having any responsibility there. I like just being able to, especially because all my gigs were at like 9 in the morning. Like, dude, do you know? Like, I'm up at 3 a.m. on the golf course, you know, like looking at UFOs. But, you know, there were a couple other ones I got that didn't go so well because I'll just put it this way. It was like hiring Black Sabbath to perform at a bar mitzvah. I just wasn't the right guy to bring on those people. But, you know, you and Martell and Clyde Lewis, that was a great fit. But yeah, I don't know if they're going to ask me to do it again or not. But I'm not going to. I'm not going to say anything. I just want to go and hang out, really. But I would like to introduce you. That's probably about it. So hopefully they don't ask me to do too much.
Well, the next one that's coming up is Conscious Life Expo.
Yeah.
And I think you said you're going to be there.
Absolutely.
Perfect. And I know that Jimmy has kind of like...
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about that. We'll see who... honestly, I think it would be cool... Dude, we could do something different, and we could do like almost like a... Not quite a skit, but sort of do like a duo sort of... I don't know. We could do something cool with that. Or he could just say, no, Gigi's not allowed. I'm doing it. And so he'll probably... Yeah. That could be.
Jimmy, we've been close friends for a while. And if he is there, it's like he will just say, nope.
Yeah, I mean, what he says goes, especially because now he's actually on the board and he's running things there. But also, I have nothing but... I'll tell you what, man, I wouldn't know this show wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Jimmy. I wouldn't have any of the connections I have. I actually owe a lot to Jimmy. So that's all fine and good. And you know what? By the way, so let's see. We got what do you think we have time for one phone call? Well, I mean,
we can.
Are you down for a phone call?
We got it. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Of course. All right. And I don't want to keep, because we can go as long as we want, but obviously you're quite a bit.
Yeah,
it's like later for you over there.
For me,
yeah. So
things happen to me at midnight, man.
Absolutely. So okay, Rocker, go ahead and call in, man. And I'll try to. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I will give you a heads up. Skype just updated, which sometimes means my little ghetto rig trick to make the ring not sound might have been deactivated. So when he calls in, you guys might hear a bah, 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 blaring through your ears. So I apologize for that in advance if that happens. But yeah, Rocker, go ahead and call in, man. In fact, just in case the chat, they're probably hearing us from 2 minutes ago right now. So I'll just go ahead and text them. Call in now, dude.
And I'm not on the chat, but I can read some of the things. And I think he said he wants to talk about Bigfoot.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorite topics, obviously.
Yeah. And so we're trying to now OG listeners like Dragon Rose and actually everybody in the chat are pretty much OG. But yeah, several years ago we had an episode with the Rocker and his brother and his dad were all on the show. They had a very intense Bigfoot sighting. And it wasn't just them. There was another family that was with them up there in Michigan. And not just a sighting, like an encounter. Incredible story. But that was like 5 years ago. I was probably stoned and drunk or whatever else at that time, and I barely remember. So we're gonna do it again, but this time, because back then we had to run commercials every half hour, which I think I'm supposed to do actually, but I don't know. They haven't said anything, so I've just been doing this, and so no commercials. We can go as long as we want. So that's what we're wanting to do for the 8th anniversary episode, which will be. The anniversary is technically on the 16th, which is not a Friday. So either next Friday or the one after, either one could be that episode. So that's what we're going to do for the 8th anniversary episode. I don't know if Rocker's dad's going to make it, but definitely him and his brother. And we're going to revisit that whole story and get into the weeds of it. We're very excited for that. And I hope I'm not missing... Oh, yeah, he definitely has my call-in number. He calls my call-in number when we're not even on the air. It'll just be like Tuesday at 3 o'clock. I'll miss a call on there. It was from, it was from the rocker. Um, you know what? Real quick. Well, I'll tell you what. You know what?
And Dragon Rose, you've been on because your story is crazy. That's why.
Yeah.
Been on twice, coast to coast.
Yeah. Were both of those times for the raid incident? Were those both the times? Right?
Because that's news.
All right. Sorry, had to call the rocker there. Let him know to call in. So yeah, he'll be here in a minute. But yeah, both of those for the raid. Okay. Yep. And yeah, that's wild.
And they still don't know the reason.
Yeah, and I'm sure they never will. Did they ever give Dragon Rose? Did they ever give you any of your stuff back? Like at all? Any of it? I know they didn't fix your door or any of that. Have they done anything whatsoever? Any sort of nice gesture of any kind? Or just still stonewalled nothing? Curious to know. Actually, you know what? It wouldn't be as beneficial as Coast to Coast for you, but I'd be down to have you and Jorg on here and go through that whole story. I think we had planned to do that at one point, and I'm just an idiot and we never did it. But yeah, that also, I don't know if so. She says no, they still have it all, or they give it away for their Xmas gifts. Yeah, yeah, it's probably still sitting right in their little evidence box, just in case they need to. Yeah, they're probably going to hold on to that forever.
It's in the same box as someone's laptop.
At the very least, they should at least refund you for what that equipment costs. I'm sure if, I don't know if it'd be worth the money to hire an attorney and sue them over it, but if you were like a multi-billionaire, you could probably legally get that, at least get your money's worth, but you would spend too much to get it. So yeah, that's as good as gone, unfortunately. Yeah, that's why, and they weren't even, that was very unwarranted. And yeah, that's why I've kind of chilled out on some of the stuff I used to talk about. Okay, here comes. All right, he called the wrong number. He's going to call the right one now. But yeah, we got the rocker coming on in a minute. And, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll definitely have... Man, it's been a while since Jorg's been on here. That must have been back in, man, that was probably 2018. We had him on. All right, so here comes Scott. Hopefully this works. Well, I'll be damned. It actually worked. It's going to take a second for him to pop up, I think. And boom, shakalaka. What's up, rocker?
How's it going, GG? You doing all right, buddy?
Terrible. How's it going?
About the same way, man. We're doing all right, man. We're hanging in. We're doing on.
Right on, right on. And Jason, you can hear rocker, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Good
Okay.
to hear your voice. It's been a while.
How's it going, Jason? You doing okay, buddy?
Oh yeah, I'm in Canada. I'm snowed in. I think I shoveled a couple times already today. I'm good.
And I know you're rooting for the Red Wings, right?
The Red Wings. Oh, Detroit. That's like my childhood there. Good memories.
There you go. Hey, I got a question for you. You had an incident with a Bigfoot, right? And was it Mount Shasta? Where were you at when you had that incident?
Well, it was Mount Adams, and
Mount Adams, yes. I'm sorry, correction.
you'll have to be more specific because there's a couple incidents. I've also spoken a lot about other people's encounters.
Mm.
I feel like he might be asking about the ESETI situation.
The the one where they closed my window.
Yes, yes, that incident.
Yes. Yeah. So just quickly, it's we opened the window because it was too hot out, so we needed some fresh air into the room. And this window was a very old wooden window, very difficult to move. I had a lot of trouble getting it up. And in the middle of the night, I hear it crashing down. And I just thought my wife got up and closed the window. And I just went back to sleep. And the next morning, a gentleman was telling everybody at the fire circle that they saw this Bigfoot last night. And they're like, well, where did you see it? He was like, standing right there by that window. The guy was pointing at my window, So that was my experience. So I didn't think it was.
So you didn't get to see it. You didn't get to see anything. You just heard this window coming down. Then.
Yeah, I just heard a big crash and I saw the window come down, and then I just my wife just closed the window and I went back to sleep.
That is insanity. Well, that would wake me up for sure.
Yeah. And so I didn't really think much of it until the commotion the next morning, where the guy was like, it was right there. It was so cool. I can't believe I saw this Bigfoot. And he was telling everybody and pointing to my window. I'm like, and then I turned to Monica. I'm like, Monica, did you get up in the middle of the night and close that window? And she's like, no. It's like, okay.
Interesting. Is he aware, Jason, are you aware of my Bigfoot sighting?
I'm not.
Oh my gosh. I'm 62 now, but this was like when I was like around 14, 15, just before I was driving.
Yeah.
And you're from up that way, so you know what morel mushrooms are.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so in the springtime, these morel mushrooms grow out, and we're going out to go hunt these morel mushrooms. And it was my dad, his best friend, and two of his kids. It was like 4 children and 2 adults. I was probably the oldest there. I was probably 15, maybe 14 years old. And we're going through the Huron forest. And there's usually a highway that goes around the forest, but these guys wanted to take the logging roads to make a shortcut to go through it and kind of shine the deer lights into the woods. Mm-hmm. This is before like pagers or any kind of cell phones. And Gigi and a lot of people know this story very well. But as we were going through this logging roads, they were shining. They'd plugged this little lighter into the cigarette lighter, and they were flashing in the woods, this spotlight. And lo and behold, about 100 yards, maybe 150 yards ahead of us, this thing stepped out onto the road, and what I thought was a man on stilts.
Wow.
And as we're going towards this object, I was seconds. I said, hey, what is that? And my dad had swung the light towards the road in front, and he dropped the light down. He goes, what the hell? And as we're creeping towards this thing, maybe 5, 6, 7 miles per hour, we're just crawling along this logging road. And as we're getting closer, we're realizing this isn't a man on stilts. And it looked like it had like some sort of polio, or maybe something was wrong, because it was dragging a leg and his hands crippled up towards his chest. But this thing was like 9, 10 feet tall.
Wow.
And we were looking, and it didn't come at the vehicle, didn't attack us, and we went right by it. As we got about maybe 10, 15 yards, we started freaking out. My dad was rolling up the windows, we're locking the doors, and the driver really was having a really rough time with everything that we'd seen. He's like, now he's hauling ass down this road. And as we drove by it, I looked up and saw this face of this thing, this creature, and about a mile, maybe half mile down the road, my dad's trying to calm the driver down. Hey, listen, calm down. You're going to get us killed, because we had a trailer, a pop-up trailer behind the station wagon that was flying all over the place. And I'll never forget this, and as long as I live, I'm trying to promote this as much as I can, because I don't know anybody that had seen a Bigfoot that never ran from them, but this thing did not run. If you want to call this a Bigfoot, whatever it was, it didn't run, and it pretended like we weren't even there.
Wow.
Yeah, and I almost wonder if, well, you know what? Hey, Rocker, we do gotta, it's late over there for Jason, so he's gotta.
Yep.
We got to get wrapping up, but we do.
That's a great story.
Yeah, and so with that story, we are going to. What do you think, Rocker? Do you think we can do that next Friday, or the one after that, or what are we thinking there?
Yeah, I would talk to my dad. My dad's 89 years old now, and he's got a good mind still. And my brother that was there. There's 6 of us that were there. We saw it, all 6 of us, and. I would love to tell the story again, and just from the very beginning of when we all went up there to hunt these mushrooms, and it was just terrifying. I don't even like to go out in the woods anymore because of this. It's just really scary. So, but yeah. I'll get with you, Gigi, and we'll see if we can play this out again.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do that. And yeah, whichever one of those days works, let me know, and we will definitely. Yeah, we'll be doing that this month. And yeah, either this Friday or next Friday. Let's make it happen. And yeah, let's get your brother and your dad on as well, if possible. And yeah, right on, man. Yeah, sorry, we're just a bit out of time here, but yeah, we got to wrap this up.
No problem, guys. Take care. Jason, nice talking to you. Jason, I can't wait to see you again, my brother. I miss you, man.
Miss you too. It's good to hear from you.
Well, I'll tell you what, Rocker, are you going to be at? Are you going to come to Conscious Life Expo in February?
You know what? I'd like to do that. It'd be a lot of fun. I just got some enemies there, but I'd love to go and hang out with you guys because, man, I just ignore everybody else and have a couple drinks with you two.
Yep, that's what Eric does. So, yeah, no problem. No problem.
Yep, we'll be there. Take care, guys.
All right, see you, Rocker.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. And there you go. All right, MJ says he lost sound. Did anybody else? Because I can see the sound is still going. Sorry about that, MJ. But everything is a go. You can always listen to the replay. But yeah, so there you go, folks. We're going to go ahead and wind this down. So yeah, that was Rocker himself. And we are going to do that full dive, no commercial interruption, revisit of that story with me in an actual aware state of mind. Okay, so some people saying... there's been some dropouts throughout the show. You guys are obviously listening on Spreaker, right? Sylvain says he's good. Okay, maybe that's part of the reason why Spreaker is stopping the liveness, because stuff like this. But I know for a fact it's not. Anyway, there was one thing that seemed important that I was going to bring up that I can't remember, so I'm just going to let it go. Yes, on Spreaker. Okay. Are you using the website or the mobile app or the desktop app? I'd be curious to know. Just, yeah, all of you guys having problems there? If you could just say in the chat what platform you're listening on and from what device, that would be very helpful. But with that, while you guys do that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. So as always, definitely check out Jason Quitt's website, thecrystalsun.com, and if you want to get the books from there or anything from there, he's got crystals and gemstones and all kinds of awesomeness over there, and you can use the promo code SHIFTHAPPENS to save yourself a little 10% off. And then also, I believe, right, if they order through your website, they get you autograph the books and whatnot.
Correct.
Yeah, so there you go. Depending on where you are, the shipping might take a little long because you're in Canada, and that whole deal.
And Canada Post is on strike right now, so it's causing a lot of problems. But,
yeah,
we persevere.
Yep, there's that. But so yeah, there you go. And with that, now I know you mentioned you pretty much just stick to Twitter, but for anybody else that wants to reach out to you or follow what you're doing or hit you up in some capacity, is that the best place to do it? Twitter?
Twitter, but I'm also on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, so you can definitely reach out to me there as well.
All right, fantastic. And then also coming up, you said you're coming on Captain Ron's show.
Yes. I don't know if it's live or I don't know if it's pre-taped, but it's definitely going to be next week. And going to be on Dave's show, 10th anniversary.
Oh, that's right. Holy shit, I forgot. Yeah, so
on Sunday.
This Sunday, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm going to see you very shortly again.
Yep. Indeed.
And I think it's just kind of like we come in, spend like a couple minutes. I don't know exactly how the format is.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those revolving door type things. I don't know. I'm not calling the shots there. I'm just going to be on it. But yeah, you'll probably, probably be like a 15, 20-minute segment with you, I'm guessing. I don't know.
All right.
Unless you want to hang out for longer, I'm sure Dave would be fine with that. But I will say, guys, we have some OGs that you haven't heard from in years that are going to be showing up on that show. It's going to be a really special show this Sunday on Beyond the Strange. So I will obviously be promoting that from our Twitter, which is @ShiftHappensPod. I'm sorry, folks, I'm not calling it X. @ShiftHappensPod. And then Jason Quitt here is, I think it's just @Jason Quitt with 2 T's, right?
Jason _Quitt.
Okay, there you go. Yep.
On Twitter, yes.
And then to catch that episode, if you want to keep up with Captain Ron, folks, he's very active on Instagram. That's where he does all of his promos, and I'm sure he does it other places, but follow him on Instagram to figure out when Jason's episode is going to be, and honestly, just check out his show anyway. He does good stuff over there. Captain Ron being the captain of Contact in the Desert. And with all of that, for all of you video game nerds, I'm going to be streaming some, getting back into Shenmue, going through the whole series. That will be on my other Twitch channel, not the one that me and Jess do stuff on. It's Good Game Rabbit. Pretty easy to remember. Good Game Rabbit on Twitch. So I'll be doing that tomorrow for the one and half of people listening right now that actually give a hell about that. And with that, that's it. Stay tuned to us on Twitter, and we'll keep you posted on all the good stuff. All right, Jason, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you, man. And yeah, we'll see you in about 48 hours on Beyond the Strange.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, there you go. All right, yeah. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, we're going to go ahead and boogie on out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Shift Happens here for the Fringe FM. This show is hosted and produced by yours truly, Gigi. Again, follow us on Twitter over @ShiftHappensPod. And then Shift Happens Radio for all of your needs. All the episodes are there. Links to all the other social media. Literally everything is right there at shifthappensradio.com. Associate producer is Brad Harris. You can follow him on Twitter @ADS Brad Harris. And as always, all blames and faults go to Fran. That's right. #Fran's fault. All right, folks, have a great rest of your weekend. And I hope to see you for Beyond the Strange 10th anniversary this Sunday. Wave bye-bye now.